Let's begin with the O of ocean, openness to experience. This refers to a person's willingness and desire to try new things. It is most closely related to the life domain of intellect, though it doesn't directly correlate with IQ scores. Instead, intellect shows up as intellectual curiosity, symbolic thinking, and the variety of interests one might hold. On that note, intellect is the Big Five model term used to describe this trait. Similarly, Fisk termed this trait inquiring intellect. A person who scores high on openness to experience is likely to be creative, to enjoy considering abstract topics, and to feel motivated to take on new challenges in life. They are outside-of-the-box thinkers who prefer variety, novelty, and independence. They are more likely to be described by others as eccentric, worldly, or curious. Someone low in this trait is more likely to be resistant to new ideas and to change. They tend to dislike more abstract and theoretical concepts. They prefer concrete thinking and concrete forms of entertainment. They are also not particularly drawn to creative or imaginative pursuits. They appreciate routines and familiar aspects of life. They are more likely to be described by others as practical, conservative, and down-to-earth. Unlike those who are high in openness, who enjoy traveling and trying new things, those low in openness do not tend to like change and are more likely to enjoy eating at a restaurant they've been to millions of times before and know what they like there. While those who are high in openness are generally inventive and curious, those low in this trait are more likely to be viewed as cautious and pragmatic. Of course, you could also score more towards the middle and be average in openness to experience. People who fall between these descriptions are willing to try new things to a degree, but also appreciate tradition and routine. Some facets of openness to experience that you will see or hopefully have seen on the IPIP Neo are imagination, artistic interests, adventurousness, and liberalism. Conscientiousness refers to the degree to which we engage in self-control related to long-term goals and values. That is, the tendency to be organized, dependable, disciplined, and planful. Fisk referred to it as conformity. It particularly relates to our life domain of work, but also very much applies to being a student, which falls under the work umbrella. Research, such as Soto and John 2012, suggests that we become more conscientious as we age. So, if you scored low in this area, you might find that it increases over time. While impulsivity has a bad connotation, it is important to note that impulsive people enjoy the spark of spontaneity and have a lot of fun in life. Assuming that impulsivity is not destructive, self-sabotaging, or antisocial in nature, it is associated with a colorful and present-focused life. High scores on conscientiousness, on the other hand, tend to be consistent with being very self-controlled. These people tend to put aside impulses in favor of accomplishing goals and doing the best job possible. These are people who are very attentive to details, love to-do lists, and other external aids like alarms and calendars. They prefer structure. Moreover, they are very organized, disciplined, efficient, and persistent planners who are often quite successful. But, as John Johnson notes on his IPIP Neo Descriptions website, it's not all good news. High scorers also tend to be workaholics and perfectionists who may come across as stuffy or boring. They can be obsessive and stubborn. In contrast, low scorers, in addition to being spontaneous, can be criticized for the opposite. According to Johnson, these individuals are sometimes viewed as lacking ambition and not properly following the rules. While they are never viewed as stuffy, they are at risk of losing track of life goals in favor of present moment enjoyment. With that said, they are much more flexible than their highly conscientious counterparts. Average scorers have struck a balance between these poles. They are, as Johnson puts it, reasonably reliable, organized, and self-controlled. Some facets of conscientiousness on the IPIP Neo are cautiousness, orderliness, achievement striving, and self-discipline. Extroversion, which is referred to as surgency in the Big Five model and confident self-expression in Fisk's model, is commonly misunderstood. The life domain of extroversion is sociability, but don't read into that term too much, because while many people assume that extroverted people are those who perform well in social situations, this actually relates more to social skills than to personality. Instead, extroversion refers to the degree of desire to engage with the external world and the tendency to seek out and enjoy sensory stimulation. Many people use a battery analogy to describe the extroversion-introversion continuum. Extroverts charge their batteries by socializing and engaging in stimulating activities, whereas introverts drain their batteries doing the same. Again, it's not that introverts necessarily dislike socializing. It's just that they might need more alone time or more quiet time to recharge from it. They also tend to prefer smaller groups of people. People often mistake me for an extrovert because I enjoy people and I have decent social skills, or I like to think so. But I actually score pretty darn low in extroversion and find socializing more tiring than a lot of people expect, and I prefer to spend my time in relatively quiet, serene spaces. You'll learn more about introversion in the assigned NPR article by Susan Cain, and we'll also learn more about the biological aspects of extroversion versus introversion when we get to eye-sync in the biological materials. To sum it up, people who score high in extroversion tend to be energetically engaged with their environment. Again, it charges their batteries. These are the people who love to talk about anything and everything, including small talk, and thrive in social situations. They are outgoing, enthusiastic, friendly, assertive, and generally comfortable being the center of attention. Extreme extroverts may even come across as attention-seeking or domineering. In contrast, those who score low in extroversion, who can be referred to as more introverted, are much less energetic and active. They tend to prefer more solitary activities and need much less stimulation than their extroverted counterparts. In fact, they are much more likely to be overwhelmed by the amount of sensory stimulation extroverts regularly crave and surround themselves with. Introverts may still very much appreciate social interactions and relationships, but they tend to prefer smaller groups and deeper conversations than extroverts. In social settings, they may also prefer to observe others rather than be in the spotlight. Johnson notes that this is sometimes mistaken as unfriendliness or arrogance, but that is more related to agreeableness than introversion. Introverted people who score high in agreeableness are simply less outgoing and prefer being alone, but that doesn't mean that they are rude, shy, or depressed. With that said, they are sometimes interpreted as aloof, disengaged, or self-involved. Of course, you can be average as well, which would mean that you may prefer less stimulation and socializing than true extroverts, but more so than a true introvert. Some facets of extroversion are friendliness, gregariousness, assertiveness, and excitement-seeking. Agreeableness refers to an individual's degree of concern regarding social harmony and the degree to which they tend to compromise, collaborate, and cooperate as an attempt to maintain said harmony. Fisk referred to it as social adaptability. Soto and John 2012 found that, like conscientiousness, we also tend to become more agreeable as we age. The life domain is love. High scores on agreeableness suggest that the person is concerned with other people's well-being. These individuals tend to be easy to get along with and want everyone to get along. Therefore, they tend to be well-liked as they are considerate, helpful, and willing to compromise as needed. Johnson notes that these people tend to be more optimistic about human nature and approach others through the lens of trust. In contrast, low scorers are consistent with having less concern for others and a less trusting lens from which they view others. These people also tend to be less cooperative and friendly, and therefore usually less popular. While people may view those who are more disagreeable as cold and critical, their resistance to the pull of popularity can be an asset, particularly for careers that depend on assertiveness and objectivity. While high scorers may be viewed as naive and submissive, low scorers are more likely to come across as suspicious, argumentative, and antagonistic. An average score on agreeableness reflects a middle ground approach to others, in which others' needs are considered, but not necessarily to the extent that an individual would sacrifice their own needs or desires. Some facets of agreeableness are trust, modesty, morality, and sympathy. The last of the 5 factors is neuroticism, which reflects how prone an individual is to psychological stress. In the Big 5 model, it is referred to as emotional stability. As Goldberg tends to prefer using the, quote, positive pole, Fisk termed the trait emotional control. The life domain is affect, which refers to emotionality. High scores are characterized by moodiness, nervousness, and high anxiety. More neurotic individuals tend to be more emotionally reactive, easily upset, sensitive, and pessimistic. That is, they experience more dramatic shifts in mood and have a harder time bouncing back from stressful events. They may be viewed as passionate, dynamic, sensitive, and engaging, but may also come across as unstable, overly emotional, and insecure. In contrast, low scores reflect personalities that are more relaxed, calm, and emotionally stable. They tend to handle stress well and are confident about their ability to handle stress, and they remain calm most of the time. While they do not worry as often and have an easier time responding to and/or recovering from difficult emotional experiences such as anger, vulnerability, anxiety, and sadness, they are sometimes perceived as more apathetic and uninspired compared to those who score higher in this trait. An average score of neuroticism reflects balanced reactivity to stress. These individuals are calm in the face of relatively minor stressors, but will react to notable stressors more often than those who are low in neuroticism. With that said, they recover more easily and more quickly than those who score higher. Johnson notes that while low neuroticism is associated with less reactivity to stress, it does not mean they necessarily experience a lot of joy or other so-called positive emotions. That is reflected more in extroversion. Some facets of neuroticism include depression, anger, self-consciousness, and vulnerability.